you want to get into what we were originally going to talk about?
Yeah. So...
Hey, today's podcast is supposed to be about us and ourselves.
We're going to have a 45-minute intro. So I was thinking... Oh, we're going to have a 2-hour intro. Oh, wait, no, because the other thing is... Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday we were talking about it might be fun to start with a story. I mean, I did kind of talk about my story a little bit, but it's not what I intended to talk about.
Uh-huh.
So a story that just might help people know you a little better, or at least what you might... What kind of decisions you're prone to. I have one already if you don't, but tell me a quick story about yourself.
I can talk about my sleepwalking stories.
You sleepwalk.
I sleepwalk. Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Now, do you mean like you get up and you're like a zombie walking around your apartment sleepwalk?
Yeah.
Or do you just stand at the edge of your bed and you crawl around? What do you mean sleepwalk?
Well,
is it very literal?
Yeah, here's the thing. I wake up and things in my room have changed. I'm not aware of when I'm sleepwalking. So I'll wake up and I'll have to play detective to see what Sleepy Chad did last night.
Chad, you should film yourself one night.
See, I thought about that.
That's good content.
That's so creepy. I'm not going to film myself while I sleep. That's weird.
No, that's perfect.
It doesn't happen very often either. Like, it happened like a few times when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then it would happen... when I moved in with Cameron, it really ramped up a bit. Like, it would happen, like, every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But starting about 2 or 3 months ago, it's been happening, like, every couple of weeks.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's stressful.
Yeah, so, I'll wake up and I won't remember... I won't even know I sleepwalked until... Okay, so how it started ramping up, like, 3 months ago.
Okay.
One thing he started doing a lot was I wake up and the first thing I do is I look over at the clock to see what time it is.
Uh-huh.
So every other week for a couple months, basically, I'll roll over and the clock will be gone. Off the wall. And I'll know exactly what happened because he's done this at least a dozen times now. He'll, in the middle of the night, he'll wake up, Sleepy Chad I'm talking about. I talk about him in third person.
Yeah, because it's not really you, it's your sleep demon.
I have no agency with this as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, Sleepy Chad will get up out of bed, he'll take the clock off the wall, and he'll hide it somewhere in my room. He's hid it under a pile of clothes. He's jammed it behind my nightstand. Mm-hmm. He's hid it in my drawer. It'll just be gone somewhere. And so I wake up, I roll over, look at the clock, and the clock's not there. And I'm like, oh, God, what did he do?
Oh, boy.
One time I made a to-do list of things to do the next day. And I woke up and looked over, and that was erased off the board. I suspect he got into my phone one night because we have this smart light bulb, and the color was changed. Which the only way to do that is by getting into your phone. So that's kind of weird. I need a different passcode.
For myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So my roommate, normally if I sleepwalk, it's like the first hour and a half after I go to bed.
Yeah.
Which is bad for my roommate because he's usually up for that hour and a half or so. So I freaked him out a few times. He'll do this.
Your roommate's going to school for psychology, right?
Yeah, he's going to become a therapist.
So that's probably actually really awesome for him because he gets to experience some weird shit
well,
firsthand in your house.
He hates it. He gets enough weird shit at his work. He's a MHT for a place in town. He's basically... He works with a bunch of people who are... what's a better word for crazy? Like they have like bipolar disorder or 5150.
Okay.
Like they're incapable of caring for themselves or others. Mm-hmm. So they're all like on suicide watch and like a lot of them like see stuff that isn't there, like schizophrenic stuff like that. And his job, he has a few jobs, but his main thing is
I didn't
like
know we had a place like that in town.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if they get combative or like they're locked in there and they're not allowed to leave. But if they get combative or try to escape, he's the one who like wrestles them to the ground and then like holds them down while the nurse gives them a shot, and then they put them in a quiet room. It's a padded cell.
Padded cell, yeah, where they can't hurt themselves.
Yeah. So he gets enough of that at work, and he comes home and he doesn't fucking want to deal with it anymore. And I come out. He says he recognized it immediately now because Sleepy Chad never puts on glasses.
Mm.
So
because you're not actually not to see shit.
No, yeah. It's like I got no use for these. So I think the first time it happened, Sleepy Chad walked out of my room and my roommate was cooking in the kitchen. This must have been early morning, I guess. I have no idea what time it was because I wasn't actually aware of whatever this was.
Yeah.
And he has kind of an MO. What Sleepy Chad will do is he'll peek his head around the corner and then get this like slightly malicious grin on his face, and he'll just like stare at my roommate until
so creepy.
Yeah, and so my roommate looks over and gets freaked out because there's this head poking around staring at him with this evil grin. He's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And then apparently I sat down and we had a brief conversation. And my roommate was cooking, so he wasn't paying super close attention. But the conversation didn't, it was kind of...
It didn't really go anywhere. Just...
Yeah, it was like... I mean, I don't know because I wasn't part of it. But he was like, yeah, it was kind of a weird conversation. I wasn't really paying attention, but you said some, it was, disjointed, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say one thing, and he would respond, and then I'd say something completely unrelated. I guess. Yeah. And then eventually I went back to bed, and that was the end of that.
Oh, shit.
But the peeking his head out, he apparently does that. That's his main thing that he does. One time, it was probably about a month ago, Sleepy Chad got up at it was 11:30. And my roommate was up, and I stuck my head inside his doorway. And he looked over and was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" Apparently Sleepy Chad said, "I'm a pest professional. I'm going to go do pest control." Cameron's like, "Not right now, you're not." And he's like, "Oh," because I had to wake up early to service Dutch Bros that morning. I had to get up at 5. And so Sleepy Chad was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to go do Dutch Bros." And he's like, "Hey." And that kind of jolted me. He's like, "Are you sleepwalking?" And that made me wake up because it was
You're like, "Where am I?"
A fairly hostile tone. He was like, "Hey." I was like, "Oh." So and when you're sleepwalking and then all of a sudden you're awake, so when you wake up, no matter where you are, you're physically exhausted for at least 10 seconds. If you pay attention to when you first wake up, you don't want to move at all.
Yeah.
Even if you're ready to go. And so it's like that, but you're already standing. So it's exhausting. I'm just like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And I just look up and my roommate's scowling at me angry. And I'm like...
It's like, "You're pissing me off, Chad."
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm still 3/4 asleep, so I'm barely lucid. And he's like, "You're sleepwalking, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." He's like, "Are you up now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go back to bed." It's like, "Good."
Cool.
There's been I don't know, half a dozen things like that have happened in the past 4 or 5 months.
That sounds stressful.
Yeah. So that's my story. Tell me a story, Brent.
I'll just say we are truly opposites because I sleep. I go to bed in one position. I wake up in that same position. It feels like I did a light switch flipped, and I'm just awake, fine. I roll out of bed awake.
Yeah, you don't even dream, do you?
Not that I'm aware of. I've dreamt during an afternoon nap. I've had dreams, but my evening sleeps, dude, I'm train horn go off next to me and wouldn't even notice. Which is weird too, though, because if one of my dogs whines in the front room because they have to go out at 2 a.m., I'm up instantly. Mm-hmm. But if Jenna talks to me, I don't hear a word. It's very selective, and I don't understand it.
That's so funny.
So my story, I think I've told you this before, but I'll just say it for the sake of it again. I've road tripped across the country 4 or 5 times now. Mm-hmm. First time was when I was 19. So I graduated high school at 18. Or 17 actually, and then started working immediately, and then went to the local college, and I was working 2 jobs going to college, and after a year and a half doing that, I decided I was going to take a road trip. Dropped out of school, packed my little beater Mazda Protege with 200,000 miles and $1,000 in my bank account, and I drove. But before that, I had flown a girl that I had met online through video games out to drive with me.
Oh my God.
And so...
That's a hell of a sentence.
Yeah.
Say that again?
So I was... At that point, I was 19.
Uh-huh.
I did a year and a half of college working 2 jobs, and on my whatever hours of free time I actually had, I don't think I slept at that point in my life anyway. I played online video games, played WoW. And so, I had met someone playing WoW, online, just chilling. And then one of the conversation was I hate everything. I think I just want to get in my car and drive. And then she was like, "You should come to Ohio." And I'm like, "Okay." "You want to come with me?" And she said, "Yeah." And then the next day I was like, "Hey, I was actually dead serious though. I'm gonna actually do that in a month." And she booked a ticket. So it wasn't like a romantic love interest. It was strictly platonic at that point. Anyway, she picked her up in Sacramento, and this is after I like had sold everything. I told my folks like the next day, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on a road trip. I quit my jobs, or I'm gonna be quitting my jobs next month, and saved like scrolled away like $1,200 and did it. So drove to Sacramento. I was supposed to go from Sacramento to LA within a couple of months. It was gonna be like a long thing, you know. So I was gonna drive from LA to New York and back is what I meant to say. And she lives in Ohio. That's kind of it's not really halfway, but it more or less is a good stopping point. So I was gonna do LA, kind of zigzag, stop in Ohio and hang out for a month or two, and then go to New York, and then kind of just see the States when I was young. And she flew out, and we went from LA to Terre Haute, Indiana, where I crashed my car in black ice snow, almost totaled it.
Oh my god.
Road trip lasted 5 days. And her being from Ohio, Terre Haute, Indiana to Ohio was like 2.5 hours to where she lived. So it wasn't super far. She called up her mom, and it was funny because my car's in the shop. The repair cost was $980. I only had $1,200 total. And at that point, I already spent $100 in gas. So I literally was like, I got $100 in my name, and my car won't be ready for like a week. So she called her, and I couldn't stay anywhere. So she called her mom. Her mom came and picked us up. Side note, she didn't like live at home. She was actually in college on break, so she lived in a dorm. So her mom came and picked us up, drove out, and like her mom pulled up, and she had this like beater minivan, and she like looks out and like is like eyeballing me, you know, because I'm a strange boy that her daughter just showed up with randomly from across the country, and her little brother opens the door, and like she gets in, and I'm starting to get in. I sit down, and her mom turns around, looks back at me, and it's hard to describe unless you've been to the Midwest, but like middle-aged Midwestern women all kind of have the same look. They do like shorter hair out there, and like they do comfort food, so they're not like California skinny women. They're like good shaped women, you know, and like shorter hair, good shaped women. They look like moms, you know. And so she looks around, puts your glass down, raises her eyebrow, and goes, "How do I know you're not a killer? That you're not going to kill me and my daughter?" And I looked up at her and I was like, "How do I know you're not going to kill me? You're the one that just drove 2 hours to pick me up." And she was like, "I like you, good point." And then we drove on to their house, and then what was supposed to be like a week turnaround for my car ended up being 3 years. I ended up dating the girl, and we got an apartment eventually after 1.5 years. But that's not after spending a year living in her dorm secretly with her.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. While she was going to school, I lived in her dorm. Yeah, that was fun. And that's how I got the job that I worked there, because it was a restaurant that was not on campus, but it was like right there, right off campus. That had just had a grand opening, and they like went through 3 managers, and I was like, just let me do it. And I ended up managing there. That was kind of how it started. Yeah, and then I moved back home with a different girl. I didn't end up staying with her.
Real quick, can you shut that door? There's birds outside that are noisy. Thanks.
But yeah, so I crashed my car on that road trip. And then on a different road trip, I was bear hugged by a man who looked like Ron Jeremy, who's a porn star from the 70s.
You've referenced this story, but never told the story.
Yeah, so it was actually that same road trip. It was when I crashed my car in Terre Haute at a rest stop. I'm stuck, because you know how like rest stops typically have like auto and then truck. There's like 2 different pullouts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Well, I was crashed right in the middle of the like on-ramp in the rest stop to the auto side, and the trucker was pulling in like 10 minutes later. I'm trying to push my car. It's so icy I can't even push it. Like nothing's working. I'm stuck. And it's like 6 a.m. because I'd driven overnight through Missouri and was just like I was over it. So I had to stop to pee, and that's what happened. Trucker comes pulling in, and he's in his cab like looking at me as he's pulling around, and he pulls at the far side of the parking lot. And I didn't really pay that much attention. I just kind of looked up like, oh, great, you know. And then I was still trying to push the car. And at this point, the girl's like also trying to help, and we just can't get it to go anywhere. And after 5 minutes, try to look up, and there's a probably 5'5", somewhat balding man in a trucker's cap with kind of like long, scraggly hair in the back and kind of a big old beer belly, hobbling towards me from across the parking lot. And he had a partner with him who was kind of like my height and just a normal, bushy-looking guy. And he's like, "Hey, you need some help?" So we get to talking for a few minutes. Him and his buddy helped me get my car out and parked, so I'm not going to get hit and the next person comes pulling in. And then they throw a couple of traffic cones on the ice so no one else hits them. And then he like steps off to the side and starts talking to his partner for a minute because they're like co-driving. They probably had somewhere to be or they're trying to get through. And he comes back over to me and goes, do you have help? And I was like, no, not really. I'm kind of screwed right now. I'm just trying to figure out what's next. And he goes, well, you're my son now. I'll call AAA for you. And so he and he has this like kind of like this southern accent. So he calls AAA for me. And that's like, the tow. And they can take a couple hours. We were there for 2 more hours. And so was he and his partner. And his partner's pissed because he's just trying to get on the road. And this guy's like telling him to F off basically that he's going to help this kid out. At that point, like I said, I was 19. So we go into the rest area. And the rest areas out there are a lot nicer than they are here in Cali. Like they have like little like visitor centers in a lot of them with like vending machines. Like they have like hot food and like they're like nice. They're not like I-5 rest areas that are kind of grimy. And this one was one of the nice ones. It had like place to sit and eat. There was vending machines and like it was inside enclosed. And so he was like, well, let's go inside and hang out of the cold. And so me and the girl I was with and he went inside and his partner went back to his truck. So we're sitting inside, and this guy gets up and goes and buys like a sandwich from the vending machine. He buys 2. He walks over and gives me one. He doesn't give the girl one, and he just has the other one. So like he's opening it up and he's like eating it and stuff, and I'm like looking at her, and she's like looking at me kind of weird. And so I ended up giving her half, and we're all sitting there eating. And he's only talking to me. He's ignoring her completely. So that was a red flag, but. Yeah, there was some weird comments in passing that I can't quite recall. I just remember feeling really weird about it. But after about 2 hours of this awkward interaction, AAA finally pulls up. And it's a tow truck, so my car is totally messed up. And so they get my car loaded up, and he looks at me and he's like, all right, well, I'm going to leave you now. He goes, I don't usually pull over. I just felt like God had something in store for me today, so I pulled on over. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I go to like shake his hand. I was like, I really appreciate it. And he just steps forward and bear hugs me. Keeping in mind I'm 6'5" and he's like 5'5", like I'm over his head. So like his head is in my scrawny chest. My head is on top of his trucker cap. And his arms are not like on my ass per se, but they're like lower, kind of my hip areas, and he's got his like he's full on wrapped around me. And I'm skinny now, but I was skinny then. So he was like, it was really weird body to body with a strange man hug in the middle of a parking lot in Indiana. And then I ended up going to the shop, and they were like, yeah, it's gonna be like $900, and we gotta order the parts. It's gonna be like a week. So killed my whole vibe. But yeah, after living there for years, I ended up working in the restaurant and becoming a manager, like all that jazz. I don't want to go into too much on that. The last little bit, my road trip back home, Deadwood's one of my favorite places to visit. It's in South Dakota. It's this kind of like old western town. There's a lot of history there. The town itself was raised like a long time ago, but they rebuilt it as like a tourist attraction. And they do like it's old west town. It has like slot machines and gambling underneath, and then restaurants, places to stay up top of those, and like the old western single lane road kind of thing. So it's a real cool place. But when I went there, it was right before the bike rally in Sturgis. I don't know if you know anything about that. It's like the biggest bike rally in the USA. Like 30,000 bikers all meet in one spot, and they have this big party in Sturgis. I think that's in the Dakotas as well. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure Sturgis is in South Dakota. But a lot of people pass through Deadwood because it's like an outlaw town, and bikers are kind of known to be outlaws. And one of my heroes growing up was Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah.
The old gunslinger outlaw turned basically marshal, essentially. And so my last night there, I was like, I'm going to go take a shot on his grave. A shot of whiskey on his grave, and it's kind of like the thing. So I went up to the grave site, which is not in the middle of town, but it's kind of off on a hill near the center of town. And I'm walking up there, and there's a group of bikers who had clearly been up all night long, a little rough. And they all look exactly what you'd imagine a group of 5 or 6 middle-aged bikers look like. They're a little rough. One of them not wearing a shirt. One of them's only wearing the biker vest with his belly coming out. They all have these big old long scraggly beards. Real rough. Tattoos everywhere. And I come walking up. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I can't do what I came in to do because it's going to be weird. I don't want to interact with them. I'm a softie. I'm a little afraid of these guys.
Yeah.
But one of them just happens to turn and look at me and, like, does this. Like, waves me over. And I would, like, stop and, like, kind of, like, hesitated. And he's like, come on. Like, waves me over. So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna die, they're gonna get me anyway. So I walked up to him and there was no words spoken. We all knew what we were there for, and he saw the little shot glass in my hand. I just had one of those little single shooters of Jack Daniels, the little airplane bottles. Mm-hmm. He had known what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So waves me over. I go and stand next to him, and he just looks at me with his beard and just holds his hand out, and we shake hands. And then the guy if they're half moon, there's 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them. The guy in the corner was taking his drink, and the biker, the pudgy biker that I'm standing next to, wraps his arm around my shoulder and pulls me in, and then does this, waves the other guy to pass the bottle down. They have a full size bottle of Jack, and he sends it down at me and gives it to me, and they're all watching me, nodding, in acceptance. It was so weird. It was so quiet. Wow. It was dead quiet.
Yeah.
It's 6:30 in this small mountain town. It's dead quiet.
6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, 6:30 in the morning, by the way. And it's this dead quiet mountain town. There's just a bunch of bikers, because they partied all night long. They were just finishing up, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I take my big old swig and give it back to him, and he gives me a nod, pats me on the shoulder, and a minute later, we just kind of sat there in silence, and a minute later, they all shuffled off. And they're all hammered, too, clearly, after witnessing how they shuffled off.
Yeah.
I'm just standing there, so I opened the little airplane bottle, and I just poured it out on his grave, and there were maybe 100 of them neatly stacked around it. I think that's what they did. So I just did that. I just put it there, and that was my other kind of cool experience on my road trip in Deadwood. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've done a lot of road tripping when I was a kid. Not van life like everyone else do, and I just straight up I have $300. Let's just drive, see how long I can go. Mm-hmm. Did a lot of that when I was growing up. I say grown up, I mean 18 to 25 when I was a little bit younger. Yeah. I am not a free spirit, though. Don't let that fool you.
No?
No. Yeah. So, anyway, that's my story.
Mm-hmm. Did we explain what we're doing?
No.
This is so we did the intro.
Yep.
And now this is get to know Brent and Chad a bit.
Yeah.
So we started with a couple stories.
Yeah.
And now we have some questions for each other.
Yeah. Well, let's do just the very generic. So your name's Chad.
My name is Chad.
You're how old? What do you do? And
I'm in my early 30s. Yeah, the short version of my life is I was raised in the church.
No one cares. No, it's fine.
The boring version of my life is raised in the church. I went through Christian school all the way from pre-kindergarten all the way to the end of college. Uh-huh. I delivered pizza the last 10 years, and then about 9 months ago I got a job in pest control. Mm-hmm. So we're doing that. Yeah.
And now you're starting a podcast?
Now I'm starting a podcast.
Kind of pursuing what you think you're passionate about. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm Brent. Let's back up. This is Chad Radio. This is his show. I am Brent. I am the support structure to the best of my ability. I am about to be 30 this year. I was previously restaurant management my whole life. Worked more than one job my whole life. And quit all that to become a pest guy just like Chad. And then this past December, I've quit my job, and I am spending this year working on myself, doing what I'm passionate about, which is writing and drawing and anything creative. And I also have a passion for organic gardening and plants, and starting to develop a taste for holistic living. So it's going to get weird. And I'm just here to shoot the shit with you a couple times a week, hopefully, and move forward. I also didn't grow up in the church. I grew up hanging out with all the burnouts and potheads. And I curse and swear and drink too much, or I used to at least. So
you still curse and swear.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I realize how dumb I sound when I use the F word every other phrase.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot where it's if you do it too much, then it's not great.
But you lose all credibility.
It's like salt. It's the salt of language. If you put too much in, it's not good. But if you don't have any, it's you need some. Otherwise, it's boring.
It's bland.
Yeah.
So I think between the two of us, we'll have some good times. We've already had some good talks, but we have very differing perspectives and a value to hear them out, basically. So that's the way I feel about it. So that's our dynamic. That's him. That's me.
Yeah. Our relationship is...
I'm banging his sister.
You met my sister on Hinge, and then you got married.
Yeah.
And now we're just...
And now we're in our spare room. This is my studio, and now Chad's recording room. So this is the studio space. Eventually we'll get some footage of it, or at least a photo. It's set up pretty nice, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the rest of this is dedicated to just getting to know each other. We have a few questions to ask each other, respond to them, and we're just going to go from there. Dive in.
Mm-hmm. This kind of went off the rails because so with podcasting, a lot of times we'll plan something out and then we start talking and the conversation goes in a completely different direction.
This just hails to our style because it's chat radio. So, you flip through the radio looking for a station. Sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. You plan on going to the hard rock station, you end up on the countryside. It just happens.
Yeah, it's made it hard to plan out because people are like, oh, what's your podcast about? And it's like, well, it was going to be about horror and then it's in... even the individual episodes don't go like how we plan them often.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was going to ask you about how you quit your job, but we already talked about that.
Yeah.
So, if you had to fight in a war, what war would you pick?
I'm torn. If I had to choose, I probably would have picked World War II. Not because I glorify World War II necessarily. I think that there was a brotherhood in American culture that we don't have anymore. And it was a war that had every single citizen of our country and all of our allies together in. Like, we were all together in the same thing for the same cause, even if it was for different reasons. And I find that that's valuable because that's something we severely lack in today's modern society. Like, there was plenty of civil unrest during World War II, and there was plenty of political issues, and there was plenty of other issues on our home turf. But in general, if you ask a veteran, or in general, if you see a veteran, two veterans interacting together, there's a brotherhood and there's a connection there that, like, you and I won't even be able to experience because we're not getting shelled in a foxhole together. Like, there's something about being in a life or death situation that bonds people, even if you're not sitting right next to the same guy, even if they were in a whole different country. It's something about that brotherhood and that connection that I don't want to say I like desire because I don't want to be in a war and I don't like war, but there's something there, Does that make sense? A deeper level of connection that you can't quite describe.
Yeah, I listen to Jocko podcast a lot, and he has a lot of soldiers who have fought in Iraq and Vietnam, and the guys who have fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're like, yeah, my closest relationships are with my brothers who was fighting right next to me. We would die for each other.
Yep.
And there's a level of brotherhood that I will never experience that.
Yep.
And most people never experience that. They're even the guys talking about their relationship with their wife and the relationship with the brothers they fought with. And the brothers they fought with is there's something there that just combat instills something that most people will just never experience.
Yeah, and with World War II, I don't want to demonize the Germans necessarily because it's not like the whole race of Germans was bad. It was just a certain group of them. But could you imagine fighting for almost 2 years in a band of in a, I don't know, a battalion or a company, and you have 5 or 6 people you're close with, and then you're in Poland and you find one of those camps in Auschwitz, and you would die for this person next to you, and you see people who are also going through hell, and suddenly your cause becomes so much more righteous, and there's just something about I don't want to romanticize it because it's pretty fucked up, but there's something about it that you can't quite describe that is just profound. And they can't describe it, but they know it's there. We can't describe it, but we know it's there. And I know that it's absolutely not here in our current life, in our current society, And also, I just feel like folks from that era, because I don't work with you anymore, but as a pest control guy, I had a few veterans I used to service, and they were the nicest people. One of the regulars that I had every month, he was like, please come and have a cup of coffee with me. I just you look like a good young man. He fought for this country. He wants to connect to the people in it. And I was just the bug guy. You don't see that with young people anymore, and I respect and value that. Not to say that I don't know if it's worth it, because that's a hell of a lot to go through to have that kind of connectedness, but it just seems like a time lost, a time that doesn't get the value and respect that it should have.
Yeah. Well, it's something about seeing war and countries that are being torn apart, and the death and all the fallout that comes from that really, when you get back here, it's oh, this place is great. You don't have a lot of complaints,
No, yeah, it's a different time, my friend. But yeah, if I had to choose, it'd be probably the second.
And there's something about killing Nazis that's just so... It's righteous. It's like you look at like the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not quite that cut and dry. It's like it's pretty messy. It's like the
securing assets for the United States is a bit different than stopping an army of literal genocidal maniacs who are holding up people in these camps and torturing them. Like there's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, like you got the whole ISIS thing, and I know but they don't wear uniforms. It's different when you have like a nation state of Nazis, and it's like, oh, let's go kill some Nazis.
Kill some Nazis.
Yeah,
I gotta say, some of my favorite movies are based around killing Nazis. Yeah. And Glorious Bastards is still like up there.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah. If I had to pick one, I picked Desert Storm.
Okay. Because
I like being alive, and I don't want to die.
You ever seen Jarhead?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was torn between World War I and World War II because
dude, no one wants to fight in World War I.
Not necessarily to fight in it, but to be involved with, because that's when Victory Gardens became a thing, and that's when the word total war, we were as close to total war as we could have ever have been. Mm-hmm. Not saying the war is great, but that's a huge unifier. Like when every working woman here is contributing to the war effort, when people are growing gardens in their front backyards and sending them off to their soldiers so they can eat. Not to say that the soldiers went through some hell, but like to be involved in a total war effort like that is also pretty amazing, you know, in its own right, if that makes sense. Like the whole country working together for a horrific reason, but like that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, there's something about that.
Yeah. For me, war is terrible, but the unity that people find, the ones that are directly involved in it, is something beautiful in like the most horrific situation, you know. So, but what kind of topics in general do you find interesting? This is really general, but this also could apply to the podcast. Since we talk about whatever the hell we feel like it. Yeah. You know, what kind of stuff are you into?
Well, we've done episodes on. We talked about politics a couple times. We talked about media. We talked about like religion and spirituality and values. There's going to be a horror podcast, so there's a couple episodes. We did an episode about like Jurassic Park and cryptids. Yeah. And we'll get back into that too, because that stuff is pretty cool. Yeah. But I'm really into history, podcasts, audiobooks. I'll read a book about something and want to talk about it on the podcast. Cool. So it's not like a book reviewing podcast. It's just, you know, based on things that I learn and are worth talking about, I think.
To piggyback on what you said earlier, to describe what our podcast is to someone who doesn't know, I would just be like, it's just me and my brother-in-law shooting the shit.
That's a good way of putting it.
And we're very opposite, so it's actually, you know, entertaining.
Yeah, I've been trying to put boundaries around it. Be like, oh, what's it about? And I'm like, well, it's sort of horror themed, but it's also like, it's just shooting the shit.
Yeah, it's just me and my weird brother-in-law just shooting the shit. That's how I would describe it. You know, it's like if they say, "Oh, that's cool," I'd be like, "Yeah, we're very different, and we have very different opinions, but we respect each other's opinions, and so we have a lot to talk about." And that's how I would describe it, because that's what this is gonna be. We're gonna have episodes about horror, which what I'm interested in. I like spooky stuff. I love horror themed stuff. So I write all pretty much exclusively horror themed stuff. I really like philosophy and psychology. You know, I get stuck on words a lot, so expressions and quotes and things really impact me a lot more than normal people, I think. I can take them a certain way. I also love gardening. Yeah, so it became a hobby, and now it's a passion. And it's developing a little bit of a desire to learn kind of natural life, like holistic type of thing. Not to say that I'm going to be one of those, but you know, like there's probably something there I'm interested in seeking more info on it. So, and also a lot of those holistic plants just look really cool, and I want to grow them because they're unique. So stuff like that. And I also really love movies and music. That's what I'm about.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right, what do you got for me, sir?
All right. Ooh, okay. So you can ask any question and you get the answer.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's a hard one.
What question do you ask?
Who am I asking?
We'll say God. Or like a super intelligent alien. Okay. Or the creator of the Matrix.
Oh.
I mean, all three of those is basically semantics.
I gotta... This is not my original question, but I'm as equally interested in the answer as the person who asked it. Does that count? Can I use this one?
What do you mean?
It's not my original question because I've heard it before, but I'm equally interested in the answer.
Oh, yeah.
Can I use it?
All the stuff I've come up with is mostly
This question
stolen,
was asked to my man Elon Musk.
By Elon Musk?
To Elon Musk. He was in an interview. I don't know exactly who was interviewing him.
Uh-huh.
And dead-ass face looked at the guy and said, I'd probably want to know what's outside the simulation.
Oh, my God.
But I'm like, damn, that's... Yep. I understand. Yeah. So that would be my question. To whoever I'm asking it to, what's outside of this simulation here? Like, what is it? You said The Matrix, that's what like brought me on to it. Like, man, maybe that movie's real. I don't know. Well, it's pretty spooky shit going on right now.
It depends on what you mean by simulation, because I think most people believe we live in a simulation without realizing it. Like, you look at any religion, like you look at Christianity, like
God's plan.
Well, not even that. Like, God existed before time existed, before the universe existed. Mm-hmm. And then he created this universe and this, the concept of time and all the planets and stuff. Mm-hmm. And God exists outside that. And then eventually the universe is, I don't really understand Revelations, but things are going to go badly. And then it's going to get better. We're going to be in heaven or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. But
well, you're in the simulation and then you wake up and then you're in a better spot.
Yeah, you die and you go.
You're the lab rat running through the maze and then they put you back into the enclosure.
Yeah, like you die and then you go see God and he reads
reorients you.
You're in the book of life. I don't know.
Yeah.
I barely understand Christianity, but that's a simulation, if nothing else.
It's pretty close. Yeah.
How is it not a simulation?
It pretty much describes it. Yeah.
And most religions are kind of like that, where it's like, you got the Buddhism with nirvana, where it's like you gotta cease to exist, you gotta leave the simulation. All the major Judeo-Christian.
Well, and it's like the idea of reincarnation is even that you're just running a different program until you run out of programs to run. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun way to put it.
I think the only people who don't think we're in a simulation is the atheists.
No, they do, because since it's not religious based, the idea is, like Elon Musk has a good point. It's like our perplexity to develop technology, especially with AI right now, we already have AIs who can interact and interface with people. And people ourselves, the only thing that stops us from being AI in general is a choking point of how we interact. So like we have infinite knowledge or infinite access to whatever we want because of like Google. Like everything we input there, it creates a network. And this network is all-knowing at this point, at least to our expanse of what all-knowing is. The only thing that stops us from knowing everything all at once is we have to ask a question first. We don't just have instant access to it, right? Mm-hmm. So like I can find out anything I want to know by going to google.com and typing in a search bar that question. What makes an AI exceptional is they are the Google platform. They don't have to ask the question. They already have all that knowledge. It's instantaneous knowledge, and you have the full band. That's the only thing. That's the only difference, right? Mm-hmm. So he predicts, and in general, the idea would be AI would eventually understand that it has more knowledge than that. Like eventually, AI would compound enough knowledge to understand that it's knowledgeable. And at that point, it has all knowledge that it needs to be alive. Basically, it has everything that we would have, but it's quicker and better, more efficient. You take out emotion, though. So he's saying, well, how do we know that we're not in a reality, that we're actually in a simulation? Because if AI became self-aware, it could just program us, and like kind of the way the Matrix is set up. Not physically necessarily, but like for all we know, we're in the simulation right now. Like the singularity already happened. We're actually in the simulation. We're a part of it. We just don't know it.
I would like a better simulation.
Yeah.
I would like one.
Mine's going pretty okay.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm good. I'm happy with this.
I would like a simulation. I would basically be happy with the world as it is if I just didn't have to work. If I could just have... If I won the lottery, I'd be happy with a simulation. Because like I'm not huge into like buying fancy things or trinkets. It's just... the idea that I could just do whatever I want. If I want to travel somewhere and go see a museum and learn something, or if I want to spend a month doing like a month-long meditation place.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that I'd like to do. Or try the Uberman sleep cycle. Like
you do it, man. That's the point. You can. you can't necessarily do it tomorrow, but you could do it next year.
Yeah.
You know, like it just comes down to how you oriented yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh,
Simulation, man. Life is just simulation.
yeah.
So do you think you're a reasonable person?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, everyone thinks they're a reasonable person.
I don't think I'm reasonable at all.
Really?
Uh,
All right, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'd say yes, I am reasonable compared to you and my roommate. I'm a reasonable guy.
You're a reasonable guy?
We can talk through
so
stuff.
So why don't you tell me something that annoys you? What makes you angry? You brought this up earlier, like things frustrate you, like someone wasting your time at work. What else annoys you?
I don't like deer.
Why?
I hate deer.
That's pretty unreasonable, Jack.
They're always sneaking around. They're like, why are they so quiet? Like, you have like pigs and
why are they so dumb? Why do they stand in the middle of the road looking at your damn cars running right at them?
I don't care about that. All animals are dumb. Like, it's not their fault that they evolved to not be hit by, or they didn't evolve with cars in mind. Like, that's not their fault.
That's fair.
What I don't like is they're always so quiet and sneaky. It's like, they're prey. They're herbivores. They're not supposed to be like that. Like, cows aren't like that. Pigs aren't like that. Like, predators are like that. Like, the cats are super quiet, super sneaky. Yeah. I understand that. I can understand a cat. But the deer, like, they can walk right up to you. You don't even see them. It's like, what are you fucking up to? Why are you sneaking around?
I actually have almost an answer for you.
What's the answer?
I don't know if it's necessarily the answer to your question, but there is a reason that they walk a certain way. Deer walk through the woods in a way specific as to not compact the top layer of soil so that plants will grow effectively.
What? Why?
So if you ever go to a natural place, like a hiking place that's like a reserve, they're very specific, stay on trail. And there's a reason for that. Woodland areas and plant life, it's not natural to be trampled upon. It needs to grow, so soil needs to be loose. So certain plants that have delicate systems that they can only grow under certain conditions of like being undisturbed. A lot of fungi are like that, but a lot of general plants are like that. And deer live off these plants, and if they trample areas, they can no longer feed off these plants. And deers typically live to regions and zones. They don't travel worldwide. They travel like into these little regions. So it's like a natural instinct to conserve their food source by not trampling all over it. So that's why you'll see deer trails or game trails in like heavily wooded areas. It's because the game animals, the ones that are feeding on things like their foliage and roughage, they stick to the trails for quicker travel. But when they're walking through areas that have things they can disturb, they instinctively basically tiptoe through them as to not leave a large footprint to damage the area around them. Yeah. That's why they're sneaky bastards.
All right, well, I still don't like it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Let me clear thunder.
I'm reasonable except when it comes to deer.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think I'm super reasonable. I think I have moments. But I actually think that's one of my strengths, is because reasonable can be considered like what normal people adhere to, or average people, or like-minded people adhere to. And I definitely know I have a hard time connecting to most people, and I think it's because I'm generally unreasonable. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I don't like hold that as a badge of honor. But I'll tell you something that drives me nuts when people forget my name.
You don't like that?
It drives me up the wall.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like an insult. You know?
It's like an insult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty unreasonable.
Yeah, it's an insult.
I'm not great with names.
So what's the best piece of advice you've received? And has it affected your life, or how has it affected your life, if it has?
So later in this podcast, we go over all those questions. That might be a good segue into that.
Okay. You want to hold off?
Yeah, let's circle back to that.
Sure. You can just bring it up when you're ready for it.
All right.
Mine would be content to seem what you really are.
Say it again.
Be content to seem what you really are.
What does that mean?
That means it's to word it differently. It's basically be who you are and be okay with it in a different verbiage. It's a Marcus Aurelius Roman Stoic philosophy. So basically, instead of worrying about what you appear to be to other people, you just be who you are. Period. So you don't wear a certain clothing because you think it'll impress someone. You wear a certain clothing because it's who you are and what you like. But there's a line because, obviously if you're going against counterculture and wearing like gothic clothing and piercing yourself up, you're doing it clearly to make other people think that you're not with normal standards, right? So there's like a fine line to it. And if you take out of appearance, you would apply it to yourself. Like if someone says, tell me about yourself or who are you, you don't tell them something you think will impress them. You just tell them what you're into. Which is not standard though, because a lot of people say, like when you say like tell me about yourself, they say, well, my name is Brent, and then it's usually the job first, whether it's a good job or a bad job. Like, well, my name is Brent, I'm a doctor, and I like fishing my yacht, and I have 3 kids. It's usually like
accomplishments. It's
like job and accomplishment, and then whether or not you have a family or not, or you're single or not, and then like something interesting about yourself. Like, and I also am a 4-star trained chef. Like, it's always the highest thing you can say to make someone impressed. But to use this in your own term, or like to use this literally the way that he describes it, would be like, my name is Brent. I'm taking a year off work because I want to just enjoy my own time and do what I want to do. I like gardening and just talking to people. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just telling you who I am. You can decide if you want to hang out with it or not. But like, they're like, you quit your job? Yeah. Why? I just didn't want it anymore. It's such a dumbfounding statement, but it's not impressive at all. There's no need to impress, and that's the whole idea. It's leaning into yourself.
It's authenticity. Yeah,
exactly. All right.
So what's your worst fear?
Big spiders.
Big spiders? Really?
Yeah.
You don't like big spiders? It's pest control.
I know. It worked out really well. It's ironic too, because I'm gonna get a tarantula for in here.
Why?
I don't know.
You don't like big spiders?
Yeah. It's not really like a fear. It's they fascinate me, but not because I'm really genuinely interested. They fascinate me because they make my skin crawl. I don't know how to describe it other than like, you ever had like a sore tooth and you can't stop tonguing it?
Yeah.
It's that exact thing. Like, I don't know why. I'm fascinated by spiders, but big old hairy spiders creep me out. And there's not a lot that really creeps me out. Like, aside from the dentist, which that's trauma, so I don't count it as like fear the way you're describing. I have some issues with the dentist because of childhood trauma. I guess technically that would be my biggest fear, but I don't count that because it's not within my realm of control at all. Yeah, big spiders. I can genuinely say I'm not afraid of trying new things. I'm not afraid of going for it. I'm not afraid of failure. Like, I think after my big spider thing works itself out, I'll be afraid of disappointing my wife. That'll be my biggest fear moving forward. But right now, she's just rolling with whatever I go with, and that's okay for now. Big spiders. Yeah. That was a pest guy killed them. It's fine.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to actually... You got a sprayer, so it's not like you got to like... you don't have to like tangle with them or anything.
But there's not a whole lot that actually would startle me. But can you imagine, and I've written a poem about this, can you imagine laying in bed feeling that creepy 3 or 4 toed thing crawling up like your chest towards your neck, like that? You know what I'm talking about? Like that.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine like a tarantula, your bare chest laying in bed, and you just feel that, like you feel those legs just delicately crawling up towards your face, and you know what it is. And like you're gonna panic. What are you gonna do? You're gonna instantly, like when you're gonna develop the energy, and you're gonna quickly, as fast as you can, swat it off. You're gonna get out of your bed, right? That's pretty much the most terrifying thing I can think of right now. Big spider.
And you're gonna get one.
I'm gonna get one. Yeah, I want to get a pink-toed tarantula.
Pink-toed tarantula? Are the toes pink?
Yeah.
Why?
Just pretty.
No, I mean, why are the toes pink?
I don't know. They're just cool.
There's no like evolutionary reason that you know of?
Probably. I don't know.
You know why deer were quiet, so.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Discovery Channel growing up. I was a weird kid. I skipped the Disney and went right into Discovery.
It was for the best.
All right. So your ideal life. Go.
Oh man, I've been thinking about that a lot, like the last couple weeks.
And of course this could change, but as of right now, what's that ideal life look like? Like, forget about monetary restrictions, forget about social pressure, just like you're just doing you, whatever it is. What is it? Go.
I win the lottery tonight. I'd probably hold on to my job for a few months just to, because if you inherit a lot of money, it's like,
No, you're going too logical already.
eh.
It's your ideal life. You don't have to have an excuse for it.
Okay, I would have probably about a year where I would slowly start making changes in my life, because most people who win the lottery a year later, like they're bankrupt, they're done,
Okay.
because they spend it like water.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd be super cautious, and like I wouldn't buy a super nice car right away. I wouldn't quit my job for probably a couple months.
But you would definitely buy a Jeep.
No, I wouldn't.
You don't think so?
I would buy a Tesla.
Fair enough.
No, I don't know, because I really like Jeeps. I really like Teslas. I don't want to have two cars.
Quick interruption. Like 2 years ago, he was going to release a truck. Did that ever happen?
Oh, you could buy there's like you spend $100 towards a truck, and they're like, yeah, we'll come out with it at some point.
Yeah, it hasn't released yet, has it?
No, the reason he does that, I think, is so that because $100 is nothing. I can put $100 towards a Cybertruck, you know. So a bunch of people put money towards it, and then he gets to go to a bank and say like, look,
Yeah.
I have, you know,
It's like capital. Basically.
yeah, I have 250,000 people who have said they're going to buy a Cybertruck. So, like, because I heard they literally they made one of those trucks and then put the whole model on like one of their other transmissions or whatever. So it's not really a working truck. It's just like,
It's just the shell with a...
yeah, it's a shell with a...
Like a roadster, basically.
Basically, yeah. But if he can go to the bank and say, look, I have 200,000 people who are going to buy this truck, that's $1 billion,
Gotcha.
a couple billion in profit. Give me the investment for it. And it's kind of iffy, because $100 is not, to someone who can afford a Cybertruck, $100 is not...
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, they can, that's like, oh, I might want one, so I'll put $100 down, so it saves my spot in line. If 3 years goes by and decide I don't want it, $100 is nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of shady, but it's not dumb. I'll give them that. It's smart.
Anyway, your ideal life so far is winning the lottery.
It's not about the money. It's about all of a sudden I don't have to spend 50 hours a week killing rats.
Yeah, well, what would you do?
Oh man, I'd probably take a month off and just rest, because I've been working 50-hour weeks since beginning of last summer. Yeah, and I do some soul searching, figure out, I would have to figure out what I want out of life. I definitely keep doing the podcast, because the podcast is a lot of fun. I'd probably ramp it up, do it 3 times a week maybe.
Yeah.
That would probably be my main project for the next year while I figured out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I'd like to check out Ireland and Poland. It's not a huge financial priority for me right now, but at some point it's like, yeah, like Auschwitz was a pretty crazy place. That's probably worth going and like seeing.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of historical places I'd like to see. There's there's a museum in the Midwest, I think it's in Ohio, where I read a book about a guy named I think it was No Kum Sok. He was a North Korean. He's Korean.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's his name? One more time for me.
Let me look it up. Make sure it's.
The humor's not lost on me, right? Am I unreasonable?
No Kum Sok.
Cool.
That's what it is. Yeah, he was it's such a good book. He was a fighter pilot during the Korean War for the North Koreans.
Okay.
But he like wouldn't shoot down other planes because he didn't
want to be there.
Yeah, he basically figured out North Korea sucks. Mm-hmm. Like his family was like dying. He's like, I gotta get out of here. This place is a shithole. And so he like leaned into the whole communism thing, pretended to be communist, and like ended up rising up through the ranks. Became a fighter pilot and then instead of just like actually engaging, because it was the 50s, you couldn't tell what was going on with like the radar and stuff. Yeah. So if he just flew around and sprayed out all his bullets just randomly, like no one knew.
Didn't actually try to kill him.
Yeah, he did that, and it took him, like 7 or 8 years. But at one point, after the war, it was like right after the war, like within months, they were doing a routine, not not a training exercise, but they'd like
Patrol?
patrol. They'd like circle the country. At one point, he took off from the base and he went west and then south, and then on the border between North and South Korea, he turned and he was flying east across the border, and he looks to his left and he's got North Korea, and he looks to the right and he's got the South Korea, and his freedom's right there, and he's like, I gotta go for it, and so he just like turns the throttle and just starts flying south. He finds a South Korean air base, almost gets shot down. He was lucky I guess the air defense systems like weren't online that day for some reason. So like that's the only reason he didn't get shot down. He goes in for a landing, and as he's landing on the runway, another like a F-16 or something was an American pilot was landing, going the other way on the runway. So they both almost hit each other. They both steer slightly off and just pass each other, going hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour. And the people are like, by the time he lands, like everyone knows what's going on. Like, oh, North Korean MiG-16 or whatever just landed on
like our base.
That's weird. Let's go check that out. So he hops out of the jet, out of the MiG, and lands. And like one of the other pilots, one of the American pilots, walks up and he's got his pistol right there because and. The Korean, he only knows one word in English, so he just starts saying motocar, 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 because that's the only English he knows. And so one of the pilots gets on the radio. He's like, so we got a...
The dude wants a ride.
we got a North Korean fighter pilot who landed his plane. Now he's asking for a motocar. What do you want us to do? And the whole thing is just like so crazy. But dude, I've read that book a few times, and I get chills every single time he's flying across the border, and he's like if I fuck this up, like it's certain death. It's such like the bravery that like the determination that he has. Just you think about sacrificing 7 years of like lying to everyone, just like knowing you want to get out and just pretending you're full on board with communism.
Yeah. And
then you finally get that chance and you take that chance, and it's all or nothing at that point. Like, oh my God, it's such a harrowing story. Anyways, there's a museum, I think it's in Ohio, where they have the actual MiG that he flew across.
Oh, okay.
I would like to see that plane.
That's pretty cool.
Because like that's a real piece of history that's impacted me in a dramatic way.
Okay.
I'd like to go see that.
So your ideal life is taking you off work and going and checking out historical sites and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's right. Cool. Yeah, I'd have a homestead farm in Humboldt.
Oh.
In the redwoods next to the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Just live there quietly, peacefully, humbly.
Yeah, I don't think my life would change that much. I'd probably get a car at some point. And a house. But it wouldn't be a Lamborghini. And it wouldn't be a mansion.
Cool. Next question.
I think that's all I got for you. Yeah.
Okay. All right.